workshop watch. Here in the museum we build aeroplanes, restore cars and motorbikes, file, weld, hammer and tap, wonder, weld and plane some more. And they say that where you break an egg, chips fall. And that's what you're going to see here. And off he goes again! Let me welcome you to episode 26 of our workshop watch, or part 14 on how to build an aircraft. In this episode we will paint the inner side of the nose blanking, paint the wing for the first time, paint the wing the second time, paint the wing the third time, pull in the cross bracing, screw the fittings tight, finish the pulley brackets, secure the screw connections, install the pulley brackets, admiring the almost finished wing, soldering the trailing edge wire, watching Matze continue to build the fuel tank, paint the first wing also 3 times, have guests for a week, are cooked for by the guests, watch the guests building a wing segment and work on the control grips. Enjoy this new episode of the Workshop Watch. And with all the delicious Black Forest Gâteau in your stomach, the next day is a wonderful day for building aeroplanes. In the last episode I told you that the open ends of the leading edge make it a little easier to paint the inside of the nose paneling if you haven't already done so. Here, Philip is busy doing this. Once the leading edge inside is varnished, the remaining parts of the wings of course also have to get varnished 3 times. Moisture in the air is always a factor in a wing, therefore you have to protect it against it. Philip is doing a great job here. One recognizes that he is an apprentice with Champirton, as he has already learned a lot of things, but it's not only that. He's keeping control of everything he's doing and checking when he's did things, which makes it a real joy to work with him. One can see that he has a personal interest in the matter. It's not just doing a job. The triangular flaps of the plywood leading edge fairing can then be glued and tacked to top and bottom of the main spar. And from the wall are watching 2 ancestors of the Fokker V40, the Engels E4 and the Engels E6, or Fokker E3 and Fokker D8 respectively, airplanes I built for the Vintage Aviator Limited of New Zealand. Varnishing the wooden wing structure is a time-consuming job, and I'm happy that I don't have to do it all by myself. Here we see Martin helping me with the second coat.
Warte.
Schau Martin, alles abpinselt.
Alles angepinselt, ja. Perfekt, guck mal, da ist was Schamuk dran, du.
Ja. Schlimm.
Mein Gott, Staubeinschluss.
Ja, oh je.
Oh je.
Und Nasen.
Ja,
Trailer ohne Ende.
Alles wieder runter machen und dann wieder neu streichen.
Nochmal abschleifen. No, seriously, that's the second code. Another time, then we have 3, and then it should be all sealed. And then moisture and condensed water can hardly harm the wing anymore.
Können wir ein U-Boot bauen.
Soll's ja werden.
Unterwasserflugzeug.
Genau. Fokker U1. That's the third and final coat of varnish. When this is done, the cross bracings go in. That's the next step then. Maybe tomorrow, when the third coat of varnish has dried. What should be noted though, and what is of interest here is, in this type of floor construction, one of the cap strips, we've talked about it when we discussed the building of the ribs, one of the cap strips is wrapped with fabric. This serves the purpose of later, when the skin cover goes on, to sew, to stitch it to the ribs using this wrapping. When you varnish the ribs, you have to pay attention that you don't bring any varnish on top of that wrapping, otherwise it would stick together and becomes maybe brittle and hard and couldn't be stitched any longer. So this is the only difficulty in this method of otherwise very simple and very efficient Fokker wing design. After the wooden structure is sealed 3 times with boat varnish, we can start to pull in the cross bracing wires. I'm preparing that here while Philip is taking the time of giving the unwrapped cap strips of the ribs an additional coat of varnish. First step is to cut the wire roughly to length. For that I don't need a drawing that tells me that the wire has to be this or that long. It has to fit in here. And once I have determined the length, I take it out again and straighten it a bit. Not to have a straight wire, but because if I leave it that way, it takes a longer way through the wing structure, which hinders me in actually placing it between the attachment points exactly, and the turnbuckle can't pull it straight. Therefore, I take it out, straighten it, and the rest then can be done by tightly pulling it in, and it will be straightened by the turnbuckle eventually. See Philip, that's what I mean. This curved thing is pretty awkward. Erzähl die Anekdoten den Jungen. Bin ich alt. Ich bin alt. Ich bin so alt.
Kennst du eigentlich Lied oder hast du den gesehen?
Persönlich nicht, aber ich weiß natürlich, wer es war. Aber ich war kein Kunst und was. Also ich habe nur die Kunst und Ausbildung gemacht. Ich hatte dann die Kunst und Berechtigung. Also, und die derartigen Maschinen Oh, stupid me, all that talk, gettingconfused.com. It was right.
War doch richtig.
See? I just thought I had the wrong end.
Ja, ich dachte, ich hätte das falsche Ende in der Hand jetzt, aber das ist nicht das falsche Ende. Das ist ja richtig. Also ich war kein besonders guter, auffälliger Kunstflieger. Ich war halt auch ein Flieger.
Yeah, but then again, my flight instructor during the aerobatic course always used to say, Engels, mind you, you're not here to have fun. You're supposed to learn something. And this, of course, applies to Philip as well. He's not supposed to have fun here. He's supposed to learn something. See, since I have straightened the wire beforehand, I can pull it tight with my hand and can mark the position where it has to end, or rather where the turnbuckle eye bolt has to be hooked in. The spot can then be indicated with a marker. The hole can be pulled out again, and then the loop for the turnbuckle eye bolt can be bent into the bracing wire itself. With a bit of luck, the whole assembly fits then. And to make sure it all fits together, the turnbuckle is adjusted so that the eye bolt end and the forked end stick out with only 2 or 3 turns of their threads, so that enough way is left over for the turnbuckle to allow it to tighten up the bracing wire. Then that spot is marked, and that's where the turnbuckle has to go. And if you don't pay enough attention as to where your loop for the turnbuckle is bent into the bracing wire, then you may either end up on this side or on that side of your marked spot, which results in either a too long or a too short bracing wire. And the same procedure is then repeated with a second wire of the cross bracing, and then you hope that you've done everything right and that they tighten up against each other. The problem is if they can't be tightened up equally against each other, that eventually you might end up with a wing that gets twisted because one wire pulls and the other is not yet tight enough. Well, you hear the cracking noise? No, seriously, you notice that, because the wing doesn't give way that easily. You feel that there is a force acting on it. And then you have to work against it. And if one of the cables is too long, you have to replace it with a new one. It's as simple as that. And if the length of the cross cables or wires is what it should be, then you have to tighten them up equally. You can't put one in and tighten it up before the other is in, because you need something that holds it against the tight pull of the one that was placed in first. Otherwise, you pull your wing ribs out of parallelity. Now, Philip, look, it always seems to be strange and too long when the turnbuckle is just starting to tighten it up. It looks much too loose, but eventually it'll come together. den hier, den ich zuletzt eingebaut habe, zuerst ein bisschen strammer und dann wirst du merken, der kommt gleich mit. Der wird auch mit stramm. Here, Philip, feel for yourself when I start to tighten one of the turnbuckles and the length of the bracing wires is correct, and you will feel on the other one that it is tightening up also. And then we check whether or not our wing ribs are still parallel to one another. We do this by the eye. That's good enough. And then people will ask you, how tight has the wire to be pulled? And then you answer them. People, tell me, what is the bracing wire for? It is not there to pull anything together. It is there to hinder the rectangular which it braces out, to get an elongation in its diagonal line. It stops moving parts apart. It does not pull them together. There is no need to tighten it up to a certain degree. It has to be tight. That's all. Because any additional tension comes to them once a force tries to crush the rectangular. And then it was Philip's turn. Now that he has listened to me all the time, it was on to him to pull in his first bracing wires into such a wing. And he did a good job with it. Bending the bracing wires is tough work for little fingers. We've seen it in an earlier episode of the workshop watch when I let Franz Josef do a sample for you. But once you have figured out how it is done with the round pliers, it's done relatively easy and relatively quick. You could make a die for it or another kind of tool that allows you to bend it, but doing it by hand is quick and rather satisfactory. And then of course a beginner doesn't have routine, this comes by time. I'm explaining Philip here when he's asking how tight or how can he prevent that the wing gets twisted by the force or the tension of the wire. I tell him, listen to your wing. You hear the sound when it starts cracking. So, and then it was too much. Whatever you do with your bracing wires, the tension only in any case has to be that tight that it does not deform the structure of the component you're building. That's all you have to keep in mind. And for the audience out there, folks, if a designer specifies a certain tension a wire has to have, which you can take out of the construction drawings and plans, then you have to stick to that. In this case, you have to tighten up your bracing wire exactly to the specified numbers. But that's a different story here. When we did our episode number 15 of the workshop watch, I showed you how the cross bracing wires in the fuselage frame at the cross sections are wrapped with fabric strips. This is what I show Philip here. It is done the very same way in the wing. For those of you who want to have a look again, episode number 15.
Genau, wenn du das dann hast, dass du dir das einfach locker, dass du hier eine Schleife hast und da durch. Ja, das wird nachher noch mit Spanlack getränkt. Dann verklebt er ordentlich. Das sind nicht immer Kaugummis. Die Kaugummis das nicht kleben. Widerstand, gell? Sehr schön. Ja, ist Spannung reingezogen. Vergehen wollten wir. Jo. Da würde auch Matthäus jetzt sagen. Dann fliegen wir euch weiter. Dein Handy drin? Nee, ist so denn? Ja, machen wir doch einfach Feierabend. Das ist schon schön. Wir hätten ja gerne einen anderen Wein ziehen können, aber mir fehlen noch zwei von diesen gewesen. So here we are, having the hardware put in place. Yesterday you've seen how Philip put in the first bracing wires of his lifetime. First time he did that, did a good job. I showed him how to do it. He did it well. Here the nuts have to be placed on and the washers put under. The little pins for the fork ends of the turnbuckles are already secured with split pins. The whole turnbuckle needs to be secured now with securing wire. Yeah, and then the metal bits and pieces also get varnished with boat varnish to prevent them from rusting. That's one of the next steps. A little bit more hardware that goes into the wing. And the wing is done. Step by step we get an airplane. Tighten them up. Let them rest for 3 days so that the wood can compress a little. They're then tightened up again, half a turn, be drilled and get their split pins too.
And then we're off to the other parts of the hardware that still go into the wing, like the brackets that hold the pulleys for the control cables. They need to be riveted, and this has to be done flush so that they can be bolted against the rear of the rear spar.
So, another Sunday. What are we up to in the workshop today? Well, we have to build the hardware that holds the pulleys which guide the control cables in the wing. So here they are. These are the pulleys. Those are the ones that Martin made. And here we have the main pulley brackets for the inside and the outside of the wing towards the ailerons. So today's work means making the bolts, split pins, and all the things that are required to attach them to the spar. It's always the same. There's no vernier caliper when you need one. Himmel, Herrgott, Sackel Zement, die gehört doch da noch. Brum, 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 brum.
Yep, right, man at play. And that's what the brackets to hold the pulleys for the control cables in the wing look like when they're done. And of course, all the hardware and its bolts and nuts need to be secured. Sometimes just with split pins and other times with securing wire. Here we see Philip securing one of the cross-bracing turnbuckles with such wire.
Here we are, Philip and me, painting, varnishing the bracing wires. They are pure steel, and so they don't get rusty, we varnish them with boat varnish, same stuff that's applied to the wood.
And the pulley fittings for the control cables which we just saw on the workbench now have to go into the wing. And since the Fokker V40 as a prototype only existed in a one-off, nobody bothered at Fokker to design their own fitting pulley brackets and main wing fittings to suit proper wing spars of this airplane. They used what was available, and those were the fittings and pulley brackets of the airplanes like Fokker D6, D7 and E5 or D8, and that's what they used up, and hence the Fokker V40 has the same fittings as those airplanes and oversized wing spars for that reason as well. Well, Philip, if you like to, you may tell the people on the telly what your work is you're doing right now here.
Es muss in den Flügel jetzt dieser Beschlag rein für das Querruder. Dafür wird jetzt die genaue Position freigeschnitten. Da wurden schon Löcher reingebohrt. Dafür benutzen wir hier dieses Cuttermesser, um dann anschließend diese 4 Schrauben und den Beschlag festzuschrauben.
So it is much the same as we have already done on the other side over here. Philip did that already. He did a good job with that. Will certainly not fall apart in the air. I'm happy. And now he's doing the same on the other side. Sounds funny, but that's the way it is.
Richtig gute
Was? Fertig?
What, Philip? Done!
Was, Philipp? Fertig?
Well done!
Fix und?
Fertig.
Well done, yeah, right. Oh, what a beautiful wing that is.
Wing's almost finished. It's just missing is the trailing edge wire and the mounting brackets for it. Isn't she lovely? You have been part of it and watched it coming together. If you haven't yet upgraded to museum supporter level, consider do so. Just $5 a month help us to bring those things back to life again. Oh, they're absolutely gorgeous. I like. So, let's see what we are up to today. I think, yes, I'm right. The trailing edge wire is attached to the trailing edge of the wing. or rather is being attached, because we have Philip here, the smoky guy. He's cleaning the soldering iron and is fixing the last open end of the trailing wire.
Well, Philip, seems you appear quite often in this episode of the Workshop Watch. How come? Well, that's because you're here. People who are not here can't be filmed.
Ja, aber macht auch sehr Spaß.
Ja, gefällt's dir?
Ja, doch. Ist mal was anderes als Faserverbundwerkstoffe. Mit denen zu arbeiten.
Das stimmt.
Jo.
Opa war auch nicht blöd und er hat schöne Sachen aus Holz gemacht.
And while Matze is working on the fuel tanks for the Fokker V40, Philip shifted his attention to planning down the wing spar beams of the Fokker D7. Yes, the Fokker D7. Most of the wing on the V40 is done, and so we decided to start preparing the D7 upper wing rear spar, which we intend to build spring next year. And while the other two are occupying my wood shop, I went over into the barn, where the first wing we built of the V40 was on the fuselage, and when we did it, I was not in the mood actually to varnish it, so there's a lot of work I have to do now, since you can't get around it. 3 times varnishing of this wing now. But before I can actually start varnishing the wing, I have to dope the fabric wrappings of the intercross sections of the bracing wires.
Wenn halt noch nichts da ist, dann ist nichts zu vergleichen.
Yeah, tall people do have a disadvantage here. Now when you varnish the wing and the lacquer gets sticky and you go under it, your hairs might stick to it and the varnish may stick to your hairs and it all sticks together. It's not so funny.
And as you can see, the first wing we built of the V40, our serial number 020, it's got its final coat, third coat of varnish. Isn't that a real beauty? As you can see, this side already got its trailing edge wire, while this side is still lacking it. I admit, I've been a bit lazy when I was doing that one and didn't find the mood to actually do the other one. So this is one thing that needs to be done next, and then we're off to the control cables and the ailerons. And they go here. Oh, what a lovely sunny day this is. Start of a new week. And this week I've got visitors. Philip and Marty want to stay here for an entire week. Get some closer glimpse on vintage airplane construction. Now, let's see when they show up. And then I already have an idea of what to do with them so that they can take something with them. Not just knowledge they gained, but also some stuff they hold in the hands. Well, be surprised. Oh, warm. Yep, and while I'm waiting for the boys, I prepare those wooden handles for the control column grips for V40.
Here are the two of them.
So, da sind die
The
beiden.
stand and wait.
Da stehen sie und warten.
Marty and Philip. And now I show them something, because I was thinking, you may, if you want, build a little wing segment. Up here you see this segment of the Fokker D8, and over there is one for the Fokker triplanes. And now I had an idea. Just follow me. I thought by myself, we could, since I already wanted one for the museum, build a little segment of the V40 wing. Let's pick a segment and build the wing ribs for it, and also build the spar segment, so that we end up with a full-size model of a wing section of a wing rib bay. And I wondered if we shouldn't take this one. So we have the aileron attachment spar as well, and the other little fittings. Another area like this would be too complicated, for there are all the metal fittings in there, and I doubt that I could show you how to make the metal fittings and the wing segment within this week. But what we can achieve this week over is building all the wing ribs for 2 of these segments. One they can take with them and the other one remains in the museum. To start with the wing segment, we have to build the ribs first. And to build that segment we need rib number 5 and rib number 6. We do this using the building jigs and templates, which I have prepared here already for you. This is for rib number 5, and over there rib number 6. Now, if you want to build such a rib, you start with the so-called rib webs. Those are these plywood plates that form the shape of the rib. Yep, we call them rib webs. A rib consists of those rib webs and the rib cap strips. The rib cap strips are those flanges on top and bottom which serve as a point to attach the fabric to, and they give stiffness to the otherwise floppy rib webs. And for the Fokker V40, Fokker used rib webs of just 1 mm plywood. It's 3-ply. Thin and light as heck, yet strong enough. And those rib webs we have to cut from plywood now, and I will show you how this is done with the first rib. For that I'll fetch myself a bit of plywood now. Floppy stuff. The outer layer of plywood on Fokker rib webs always laid upright. The sample rib we have here of course does not have it that way. This is because it is a double rib or a box rib which is supposed to take the loads between the wing spars as compression members, and the expert by the German CAA, the Luftfahrtbundesamt, requested to have the outer layers on these laid in the direction of flight. With our wing sample as a museum piece, we do it the way Fokker did it. It worked pretty well, no need to turn it around, and this way no suspicious questions will raise by visitors of the museum. Here we have the rib templates on which the spar positions are laid out. At the end behind the rear spar is the rib tail. In between the two spars we have the center piece, and in front of the front spar is the nose section. Each of these sections have to be cut now from the plywood. And one of the ribs we need double, since it is a double or box rib, and the other one we only need one of. And since we make 2 of the wing sections, we will have to make 6 ribs. That means each of you can do 3 of them. And this way we will have 2 wing sections in the end. One will remain in the museum as a showpiece, and the other one you can take with you. I don't know how you handle that. You may cut it in half. One takes the front, one the rear. I don't know. Fact is, I just can't build 3 of them. I'm running out of materials. I showed each of the working steps to them and explained it in detail, and then I told them to give it a try on their own. And here they go.
Dann nehmen wir erstmal so, oder? Schauen wir mal, das reicht.
and after the rib webs have been roughed out with a bandsaw, they need to be routed on my routing templates to get their final shape. This is what the boys do here, and for those of you interested in how ribs are actually built in the Fokker method, I refer you to one of our earlier videos. I have put the link into the video description below and show it underneath for you as well.
Hinten hast du eine Ecke vergessen?
You've missed a spot at the trailing edge.
Das auch.
Just that you don't think I'm the lazy guy running around supervising others while they work doing clever talk and do nothing else. Well, I'm busy doing the wooden handles for the control column grips of the Fokker V40. Someone has to make them. And since you can't live on Black Forest Cadeau alone, you know, no chomp, no fight, I have the boys cooking for me tonight. And this time, we have something Iranian. Nobody knows exactly what it is. What? Köfte? Well, tonight we have köfte. Look it up. So welcome you to day 2 of our event. Here are the two, right after breakfast. Let's see what we might find to do today. The two boys are not exactly clumsy. They're quite handy. So these are the nose bows. We laminated them yesterday and the boys already trimmed them a bit. Oh, this can be done nicer. Go down to the plywood and make sure you stay straight and level. Heroic music in the background. Heroes of the work. Oh no, that was something different. And then the laminated nose sections are cut open to slices to form the stringers of the cap strips that go around the nose. And as you can see, the boys handle it well. And I am myself an old-timer, an old-fashioned type of guy. And I take work safety very seriously. And work safety begins in the head. The boys have to learn to watch their stupid fingers. In this case, they learn to pay attention, and then they don't need safety gear.
Ja, ist so.
And then the stringers are cut to size, which form later the rib cap strips. And those will then be spliced to the front sections. And all this happens while I continue on the control grips.
Oh, mit Schleifchen. Wie schön.
Gong.
Yeah. Slight tappings on the back of your head increase your thinking abilities.
Was hat einer auf Facebook geschrieben?
What did one say in Facebook? Caution, low ceiling. I decided to quit my job as my own cleaning woman and let those two do it. Obviously I was incompetent and they seem to do a much better job. Or maybe it is just because they can't stand to work in my untidy environment. Who knows? You're welcome to keep buttering me up. And that's it for today. That's the end of Workshop Watch episode 26. If you're ever near, drop into our museum at Weschenbeuren. You'll find the address on the internet. Museum für Flugzeugbau und technische Geschichte in Weschenbeuren. Museum of Aircraft Construction and Technical History in Weschenbeuren. Or take the virtual tour. www.fokker-museum.de